Hi, I'm Josh.
And I'm Derek. We're both experienced founders and CEOs of B2B SaaS companies, and now we're your hosts.
In today's world, getting accurate information about B2B SaaS products is tough. User review sites are manipulated, and research reports are often wildly inaccurate or paid for. That's why we're here, to bring you information that no one else does.
We go straight to the software companies themselves to break down their products, show you a demo, and give you our honest opinions. Whether you're a software buyer, investor, or user, this podcast is for you.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Talk Sassy to Me. Today, we're doing things a little bit differently. We have Shawn Windle, who's a founder and CEO of ERP Advisors. So Shawn is not the founder and CEO of a software company, but of a advisory group that handles, at a minimum, system selections. And Derek and I thought, with all this information about leading B2B SaaS platforms, it would also be relevant to help you understand how you choose the right tools. It can be very overwhelming. No one has time to understand all these tools except Shawn and hopefully Derek and I. So we thought Shawn would be a great resource for everyone in this podcast to hear from as to how they approach system selections and helping businesses and things that you need to think about as well when you're going through these processes. So with that, Shawn, do you want to introduce yourself, maybe talk about your background, talk about ERP Advisors as a whole, and then we'll start drilling you with questions.
No, thanks for having me, guys, and appreciate the opportunity to talk to the audience today. So like you said, Josh, I'm Shawn Windle. I founded ERP Advisors Group about 15 years ago, but have been in the ERP industry for longer than that. I don't even want to say. But basically, have spent my career helping companies from very, very large companies with some of the big four I used to work with, to I was actually at one of the largest ERP companies, and then saw this niche to help mid-sized businesses, nonprofits, organizations, government, to just figure out what the heck should they do with technology, right? There's so many great solutions out there. How do you figure out what you really need? And then how do you go through a selection process to make sure you're absolutely picking the right software? And then we also help on client-side implementation as well. So we're working with a lot of companies every year, hundreds, frankly, on going through a process of making sure they get the right technology. And that ultimately, here's the kicker, they're happy with it. It's almost as crazy as being able to work with your wife and be successful with that, which I've been able to do so far. We'll see. It's getting a little stressful right now, but I think we're going to make it through. But yeah, thanks again for having me, guys. And really, any topic around enterprise software, the big stuff, the little stuff, looking really forward to jumping into that and helping people out.
That's great. And one thing I should have said at the beginning is, in a variety of capacities, Derek and I have worked with Shawn and his group over the years. So one of the reasons we want to have him on the podcast is we trust him. We know he delivers value for his customers, and we know they get a good result. So there's no monetary exchange between everyone on this phone. It's just people helping good people, and that's how we view Shawn. So, with that, Shawn, one question I have, maybe trying to start at the top, is what size companies or what industries are calling and saying, hey, I need system selections? Is there certain ranges or types? What does that landscape look like?
Yeah, and to your point too, Josh, I mean, we are truly independent and objective. We don't take anything, no fees, commissions from any vendor, except for food. You can always send us food. So Derek does a good job with sending some stuff every once in a while around Christmas time. And but seriously, we've never taken a cut. So we're totally independent objective. So the people that call us are typically CFOs, CEOs, CIOs, directors of IT, people, controllers that are like stuck with these decisions of like, oh my gosh, I have to bring in new software of some type to my organization. And I know enough to know that I don't know. Right. See, that's the perfect prospect for us. So, when folks are out there like, look, I got this, I can do that. That's awesome. I'll show you later our website where we've got some resources for the DIYers, we call them, the do-it-yourselfers, which is amazing. But right now, and what's interesting with what we do, right, is many of us were Big Four before. I was Accenture, got PwC, Deloitte, EY. We all made a decision, like, we really want to focus in on companies that are, maybe early stage, well-funded, right? Could be PE play, portco kind of stuff, all the way up to maybe $1 billion or $2 billion in revenue. And the focus in there is interesting because there's a little bit of what would I call it? Proofing for the future, meaning the folks that work with us are usually growing. So there could be a recession around natural resources or, recently we've seen a major influx, not just renewable energy, but alternative energy companies, right? We've got companies we've worked with you guys on a little bit, from biofuels companies, a couple of those, to renewables with wind and solar, et cetera, right? We've had a lot of those companies. Right now, we also have a lot of companies that are coming off of legacy software. And when I mean legacy, I hate to date myself, but older than me. Like we have several clients right now that are on these AS400 systems where the person who wrote it, fortunately, they didn't get hit by a bus, nor did they hit the lottery, right? We always talk about the risks of legacy software, right? But these people have actually retired or they want to retire. So we have a lot of clients calling us in that position as well. And honestly, the most surprising thing to me right now is when you look at those kinds of mid-tier, call them small, medium-sized, mid-sized companies, and again, organizations, nonprofits, a lot of them are running legacy software, even with the likes of Microsoft, or they're on old Oracle solutions, right? We have clients that are on eBusiness Suite and PeopleSoft that are calling us like, we got to get off these things. We don't know what to do. So it's probably a broad answer there, Josh. But we work cross industry, which is great because we see everything. We see the trends in nonprofit. We see what's happening with sort of local government, even especially around public safety. We do a lot there. We see what's happening in manufacturing, distribution, services, high tech. All these industries, we're seeing what's going on. And then again, we can sort of tie in for the correct software solution that meets their needs, as well as look across the whole, band of solutions that we can talk about. But we tend to focus in on sort of those tier 2 type solutions. So while we do a lot with SAP and Oracle, right, we spend a lot of time in that next level down of solutions.
That's great, Shawn. Maybe it'd be helpful to understand a little bit about the ecosystem. Like, maybe give the audience an understanding of, is that like a couple dozen solutions that you normally see, or how big is that spread of software?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't know if many vendors really understand the magnitude of the problem that most of your listeners are going through. I think you guys taking some responsibility here and educating people. It's huge, right? We're big into that. Because if you're like, let me just kind of talk you through this, because a lot of times this is funny. It's like confessions of an ERP advisor here. Here we go. Are you ready? The best prospects to us have talked with software vendors already. So they're confused. I called this company and that company. We won't say any names. And we had a great company. It's a couple hundred $1 million, about $250 million family-run business. Not really family. I guess it is family owned. Lots of people in the organization. They called us a couple of weeks ago and said, look, we've talked to several vendors, and there was one of them in particular that they just kind of kept talking and talking. We got a proposal for them. And we realized they had no idea what we really needed, because we don't know what we really need. Right. So, when we talk about the market, like you said, Derek, there's sort of ERP market, right? I can talk to that first, and then we'll get into what we call the best of breed or ancillary solutions. We say there's 4 tiers of ERP solutions. There's the tier 1, SAP, S/4HANA, public cloud, private cloud, whatever. You've got Oracle Cloud, all the Oracle Cloud sort of tools kind of fit up there. Then you sort of get into like a tier 2, right? And there's some vendors that sort of straddle there. Microsoft Dynamics 365, finance and operations, right? You've got some of the IFS, you've got some of the bigger Infor products. Then you have the kind of pure tier twos, the Oracle NetSuite. You guys have done a lot with that. Intact comes in there, Epicor, Deltek, on and on and on. You get some of these like industry specific ERPs kind of come in there, but they're doing a ton of automation across the business, right? Then you go into tier three, where it's a little bit smaller. Maybe it's just focused in on financials and like one area of the business. That might be where Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central fits in, a little bit smaller, right? But man, can you plug in all kinds of bolt-ons onto that? Then you go down to tier four, where we have QuickBooks, we have Xero, MyOb out of Australia, kind of smaller Peachtree, which is now Sage 50. Even the Sage 100 goes in that tier three. So, I mean, I just listed, 10 names, right? And to me, I'm like, oh, yeah, I know the difference, right? Kind of like we all maybe know the difference of cars. Like we kind of know, and so maybe some people aren't into cars, right? But whatever the category is, you kind of just know it. Well, that's not the case for ERP for most people. They really have maybe done a couple projects in their career and, we implemented NetSuite before, we're going to go to NetSuite now. Great. Except you're at $1 billion company now, right? But I know the software. Okay, that's great. And it can scale to that. We've done that before. I think we've worked with you guys on some of those projects. But what are the other options in that space? I don't know. They can Google, what ERP should I get for this company size? Or there's reviews online too. I will tell you, almost every ERP review that we come across, because we research the heck out of the space all the time, right? And it's not just me, it's my team. There's always a little hidden something in there. There's a reason why they put number one as info or whatever, right? Even our friends at Gartner, I've always noticed who's in the upper right quadrant, and I'm not going to say the name, of the top ERP vendor basically over the years. And it was one that really hadn't been executing in the market that well. I'm like, why are they up there? I don't know. Maybe because they pay for it. I don't know. I'm just saying. So I'm kind of being a little bit here in jest. ERP, think about those four scales, right? And here's the thing. When you start talking to the software salesperson, within 5 minutes, you will know if that person really knows what they're talking about or not. Because you'll ask a question. What color is the sky, right? Or like, how much is your ERP? That's not a bad question to ask up front for somebody who doesn't know. And then 7 minutes later, the person's still answering the question. Can I please talk to your manager? I'm serious, right? But if somebody says, it's based on a volume, we price based on the amount of transactions you do in this system. Good, that's a good answer, right? You want to be talking with people, and I don't care if we're talking about the largest ERPs all the way down to, early stage startup systems. Like, if you, somebody comes to mind right now, they're not really early stage startup, but like, some of the manufacturing tools and accounting tools that are built on the Salesforce platform, right? I mean, they're coming along. They're actually coming up to speed. They might be able to, be a good fit for you, right? But just ask basic questions and get basic answers. And if you don't get the basic answers, stop the conversation and just say, I need to talk to your manager. It's a simple tip that'll help.
So a couple things. One, we didn't pay Shawn to say that the user review sites and research agencies are jockeyed. That's part of the premise of this podcast, but he did say it. So that's a good reinforcement. So help us understand, obviously you mentioned some different tiers of ERPs and you even alluded to a lot of those having bolt-ons, which couldn't be more true. I mean, some of the smaller ones, you could extend the life with tons of bolt-ons. Larger ones, just depends. So help us understand the scope of a system selection. I mean, are you guys focused on the ERP? Or are you saying, you should look at the ERP and these best of breed point solutions as well? Because this makes the best combo. Here's where you are today. Here's where you're going to be tomorrow. Help us understand. And maybe that question's best answered in part of your process when you go through it. But yeah, help us understand that a bit more.
Yeah, you bet. And I want to explain this in a way that people that are listening to this can do it for themselves. Of course, there's firms like us that can help. But man, we have learned so much of what not to do that, do these things for sure, right? So the first thing you have to do is you have to understand your needs. That sounds so basic and so simple, but there are so many times where we have people come to us and they say, okay, I need a new human capital management payroll system. Okay, why? Well, because we're having a problem with time tracking. don't go out and, go buy Workday and spend $1 million or something to fix time tracking. You have a problem with time tracking, right? Let's focus on time tracking. We might be able to get a bolt on into something that you already have. There's lots of technology options in the market. You guys know that from your podcast as I was looking through some of the solutions I didn't know about. There's tons of apps out there. So you have to start with what you need. That's the first thing. And the second thing that goes with that is confirming those needs with the stakeholders that are impacted. So if you're the CFO and you need to close the books faster, right? Simple example. Oh, we need a new ERP. I don't know about that, but maybe there's a lot of manual stuff. I mean, we have clients that are $100 million in revenue coming off of QuickBooks. So you know what that means, which is dirty, dangerous, secret little spreadsheets all over the organization. You're like looking under the laptop. Oh my gosh. There's the big kahuna spreadsheet. There's always a big kahuna spreadsheet at like every client. It's so funny. We have different names for them, but big kahuna stuck after working with a Hawaii-based company. Anyway, you want the stakeholders to agree that that's what the needs are. So now you can start looking at types of solutions that are in the marketplace, right? You might have to call a couple vendors. That's fine. Start some dialogue. And as soon as you tell them, I'm not going to buy this now. I just did a demo yesterday of a data migration platform that we're looking at. And I told them, okay, first off, I got to talk to somebody who knows what they're doing. Secondly, I'm not buying this now, but I really need the help to understand what your solution is. Oh, fine. It just takes the intensity down a little bit. So be honest about what your needs are with the vendors. But you really should do your research. We've got tons of stuff on our website. I can show that a little bit later, but the point is that, get educated on the types of solutions that are in the market first. And even listening to this right now, most people don't talk about 4 tiers of ERP. They talk about 3. So I want you to know, there's 4 tiers of ERP. There's procure to pay solutions. There's payment solutions. Oh my gosh. So many different kinds of payment solutions. Like, good luck trying to figure out the differences with those. So the deeper you get into these, and the more confusing it will get, but then if you keep going, it will start to make more sense. Eventually, the circle will unite and you will see the end. Like, it will happen, I promise.
So real quick, Shawn, I just want to ask you a question before we move on a little bit. So you mentioned knowing your needs. So what does that look like? Is there a deliverable? Is it something you share with a vendor? Something you keep internally? Like, what is that?
The best, the way that we kind of document and depict needs is we actually develop an ideal solution. So it could take the form of business process models, as is. Here's how old I am, right? Here's the as is models. Here's the to be models, and here's the gaps, right? When I was at Accenture, Michael Hammer put together our business process reengineering training. I actually have it it's a souvenir. It's on my desk over here. But that works if you're dealing with a business process related issue. Gosh, we've got to increase our ability to scale. We across order to cash or design to build, or you have business process issues. It's helpful to depict business processes for sure on what you're doing today and then what you do into the future. But it may also be like systems diagrams that say, here's sort of where we're at today, and then here's what that future state looks like. Maybe we've eliminated some and we roll them into the ERP. I don't want to set people up to fail on this because this stuff gets pretty complex. But, ultimately, if you think with like a business case, right? What are we trying to solve? What are the benefits of solving it? And what are the costs and risks? And how do we mitigate that? And then what should we do going forward? Again, that little thing I just said in 20 seconds, we have some clients it takes 500 hours to do that, right? It can be super complex. But the other real simple nugget that I'll give to everybody listening to this is, if you can't boil it down to its simplicity, don't do the technology investment. So, for instance, the lady who wrote our ERP is going to retire next year. Therefore, we have to get a new one, and we're on a custom system. Great, that makes sense, right? There are many simplicities, because here's the thing: no matter what you do, whether it's ERP or FP&A, EPM, CPM, whatever the acronym is, it's going to be hard. Data migration's hard. It's it's a challenge, right? Because you've been doing something the same way for years and years. Oh, now we're going to change in 6 months. We're going to have basically what we had before. No, you're not. So make sure that you really, that's why I say needs. That really communicates to most people like, oh yeah, we really do need an e-com new platform because we're changing our business, or we have adjacent services that we just acquired and our manufacturing doesn't support field services, or our field services company doesn't support manufacturing, or, those simple needs, Josh, that's what I would advise on.
So another way I would say it is back when I was implementing ERPs, I remember doing a project alongside many projects alongside this one individual. And he kind of had the same saying for every ERP. And, when we were doing the requirements gathering, the needs gathering, the process documentation, this guy he went from Navy SEALs to ERP implementation. Not a common route, but to customers, he'd always say, measure twice, cut once.
Exactly.
And that's what he would say. So I think in another way, that's similar to what you're saying, Shawn. So I thought I'd share that.
Yeah. And like Derek and I had a client one time that he wasn't a SEAL, but he was an Army Ranger. And actually, you guys, I didn't pull you guys into that one. You're welcome on that. I forgot about that. I wanted to, but yeah, because I had to be the body shield on that one. So you got to watch out. The more rigor you can put into these, the better for sure.
Yeah. And I always find, Shawn, like in my experience with ERP, it's super important to have the right people at the client, like the right skill set at a client, right? And that's in many respects, I'm sure you see that as well, right? You need the right person to work with at the client. And sometimes maybe if they have the right team internally, they don't need as much advisory. And if they have not quite the right skill set internally, then they need additional advisory and support. So how does that lay of the land look if some company's looking for a new ERP and they start on the needs? What type of skill set do they need to assign this project to internally to make it happen properly?
Yeah, great question. And I think high level, we have told some clients you don't have the appropriate skill sets internally, and you can't hire or you can't bring in consultants for what you need. You need people that have experience, or the experienced people are busy doing M&A and they're doing integrations work. Don't change software, right? So that's most folks that do what we do don't say that, and we do. We actually had a client a couple of years ago that we told them stop because their CFO was really driving towards a new solution. He actually wanted BI and reporting, like which you've done a lot over the years, Josh, super well. But to get there, we really needed to kind of pull out the plumbing of the company and put in a new ERP so that the transaction processing was managed in one system. I just said a lot in there, but it's true. Then you can layer in your BI, et cetera, with other data sources. But we just had simple data that wasn't available in their old legacy Microsoft solution. So we told them, stop, don't do it, because you really need 5 things, right? You need that project leadership, which is an executive sponsor, project sponsor, somebody who's what is on the line to deliver this thing. You got to have like a lead architect-ish kind of person at the client. They don't have to be an architect like we think about it, but they really have to understand the business. They have to understand end-to-end kind of what we're looking to implement, whatever that end-to-end is. You got to have somebody who can, wrestle down the cats and pay the vendors and make sure people are showing up as a PM. You've got to have some lead technical people that can help on data migrations and integrations, et cetera. And then the 5th one is really subject matter experts that are across each of the areas. So if you're implementing a whiz-bang procure-to-pay solution, you're going to need somebody, you're going to need a purchasing or procurement specialist, right, who's a subject matter expert in what we do and what we're looking for into the future. So there's end users and there's a couple other roles, but those are kind of the 5 things. And, what we do too, Derek, is we will look at those 5 points and come back to a client and say, you do have a deficiency here. I mean, my firm helps with that. I know you know that. But even if you're not working with a firm like us, you can backfill for some key people in your organization. You can go to some temporary agencies, bring in some temp people, or it's a great opportunity to bring in some, usual people that are maybe a little bit earlier in their career to come in and get to know the system, work side by side with firms like yours, Derek, to really learn it, and then they can take it going forward. But the resources, here's the funny thing, is another nugget. ERP is more about people, right? It should be enterprise resource people instead of planning. ERP people, like PeopleSoft used to put people in front of everything back in the day. Because it really is. It's about the people. Like we've had some projects that have been hellacious, but we've gotten through them and had successful go lives because the people made it go right. Right. We're in the middle of I shouldn't say the name. We're in the middle of a recovery project with a Microsoft solution, and it's big, it's ugly, it's millions and millions of dollars, a large organization, and we kind of came in and helped them to reorganize, but we've activated the people to do what they didn't know what to do, right? We come in and say, okay, you need to do this, start, right? And now we're actually in the middle of their go live right now after 4 years. So it's a lot about the people, Derek.
So that brings up a really good question. 4 years, okay, 4 years for go live, and look, for the viewers out there, there are projects that take that long, even if they're on time and on budget. It's a big company, right, or a complex company, but the depending on your tier, that may not be the average. So, Shawn, some people say an ERP implementation is like a heart transplant to the business. There's a lot of risk. There's a lot of moving parts. Statistically speaking, there's a lot of failures. There's a lot of delays. What do you guys see when you come in? I mean, are you still seeing delays and failures? Or are you saying, no, look, when a company buddies up with a group such as yourselves, that, system selections, project management, et cetera, does that drop off the cliff, those percentages? Are they still out there? What do you see?
Well, you can Google percent of ERP project failures. You can also Google like really scary scenes from scary movies too, if you want to be freaked out. It's Halloween. I don't know. And around this time, we on our podcast, we always have a conversation about cybersecurity because it's also Cybersecurity Month in October. So we bring in some experts to talk about that. If you want to get freaked out, you can, right? The percentages are high. They are. I will tell you with our clients, they always go live. Now, is it a little later? And is it a little over budget? Maybe, right? We always get to that successful go live where they're in the software and they're using it, right? But again, you have to remember that they've been working on an old version of GP. I keep picking on Microsoft. They've been working on an old version of Deltek Vision for 20 years. And now they go live in a year, 6 months, a year, and the software is not the same. It doesn't do everything that the old one does. It actually does a lot more, and it's more stable, right? That's what most of these projects are about these days is business stability. So then there's a roadmap that goes with that software too, right? So I mean, we look at success and failure as did something occur that was unexpected and couldn't get handled? Right. We've had one project. I think we're on project 575 in about 15 years. One project where the client said, we're not doing this in the implementation. And you know what the real reason for that was? The vendor that we knew the size of the project we were going into was one of those smaller tier one solutions. We knew it was big software. We made the decision for a 10-year play. It wasn't for short term. But their people on the client side got so busy that they couldn't put the time into the implementation that was required. So, if you think about those tier one solutions and you think about the size of staff that clients have to support those, it can be pretty big. Now it makes sense as you're getting into, hundreds of thousands of transactions per day. There's reasons why we do that. We recommend those solutions. But I think on that one client, the mistake that we made was we didn't really understand how little time the client side had for the project until we really got into it. And they did another $1 billion deal and another one and another one. So, the risk is, in my view, I'd be curious. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say with that. These guys have been in the industries, we've all have a ton of experience. 9 out of 10 failures are caused more by the client side than the implementation or the software. I mean, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think from my experience, it's a lot of work. It's sort of like, it's like building a house that you want just the way that you want it for your family or something like that. And it's a lot of work. And in order to get it right and to meet the expectations of what's needed, you can. It takes a lot to get it done. The moment that you stray from the standard, you can always rent an apartment and move into a cookie cutter apartment, and you can't change anything, and you just have to live with it. But the moment you implement an ERP, most people want it tailored to their business, and they have to have it tailored to their business. Otherwise, their business can't actually operate. And in many respects, it's easy to say, well, we'll just use all the standard functionality. But if that's not the way your business works, then actually changing your business processes to match some system designed by some person 15 years ago is very unlikely to be the answer for how you're going to do it for any core processes that you have in your company. And so that's what we've seen is that, it takes a lot more work to get it done. And on the client side, the amount and quantity of change management internally and the amount of time and attention and effort put in, because it's easy to hire a vendor to build something, and that vendor can have a few conversations with you. And truthfully, even if it's weeks on site, there's only so much that vendor's consultants are going to learn about how you've run your business from the beginning. And then to be able to translate that into a workable system that works for the business. If the client's team and your team on the client side is not engaged heavily and really is owning the project, I think no matter what, we've seen that risk and that difficulty. And it's easy for a client to say, hey, I want a white glove treatment. I don't have time for this. I want a turnkey ERP implementation. And my experience has been there's not really such a thing as a turnkey ERP implementation. Like, you really do have to invest the time from the client side.
Yeah, I agree with Derek. To me, a successful ERP implementation follows a set of steps, almost like a recipe. Um, to Derek's point, there's no standard implementation because every company does things a little bit differently, but you still got to follow the recipe. So when you get to a step towards the end, user acceptance testing, that's basically letting the users test the system. Are they really participating? What feedback do they have? Do they sign off that say it's working? So there's accountability. So there's these different steps. You just have to do it and ensure success. And to Shawn's point up front, one of the things I would always do in ERP implementation is who on the client side, because I don't cut the checks on that side, is going to be the leader, is going to drill down these steps and make sure they happen. And if they don't have someone internally, then go hire someone, whether it's Shawn's group or someone else, to be that project management or to be that function that's going to help push things along. So I'm with you. I think I don't want to sit here and say it's the client's fault. But at the end of the day, I think our role is less of a vendor who's told to do a task, like a vendor that's clean my house. Okay, well that's a task, and more of a vendor of like, I'm a personal trainer and I need to. I'll work out with you 2 days a week, but the other 3 or 4 days a week, here's some things you need to do, and they have to be motivated and accomplish those things to see the results. So just my 2 cents. Um, so, Shawn, tell us a bit about the market. What maybe it's same old. Maybe there's some new and exciting things, but um, you guys are doing research all day, every day. You guys know more about ERP, the different tiers and different systems than anyone else. What's going on out there?
Yeah, good question. I think there's a couple factors especially when you look across different kinds of companies and sizes and industries. Excuse me. The big guys, they don't want to change. So if you look at, well, like we were at Oracle Cloud World recently, right? And there's, I don't know, tens of thousands of people there. And when we talk to those people, or SAP is the same thing. They know the consequences of being on-prem software. They're not on-prem. It's not, most companies don't have their systems on-prem anymore. They're in a private cloud, right? They're working with a data center, a managed service provider puts their stuff up in a cloud somewhere. Even my AS400 clients rely on a provider to put their AS400 systems up in a cloud someplace. But they don't want to change, right? Like I still believe that There is so much pent up demand. In 2020, there was a lot of OMGs, I got to change, right? Because my people can't go into the office and they can't do AP, right? We got to get to a cloud system. That's fine. Some companies change, but a lot of people just got a remote desktop and whatever else that maybe they did go finally to a private cloud solution. But most organizations out there still haven't made that jump to cloud-based solutions, believe it or not. I mean, we're in the software solutions all the time, but when we pop our heads up and I talk to many different kinds of companies and organizations, they're still like, why would I switch to cloud? Okay, but a lot has happened for sure. So you sort of have companies like that, but they're also getting pressure to do, there's all these macroeconomic things going on, the decrease of available labor, the increased costs of labor, with increased demand, right? It's a wonky time. I mean, I think we'll be talking about this time for a long time because it's like, it's like the best of times or it's like the worst of times, like we're at war. There's multiple wars going on, but yet there's still demand for all these products that our customers have and services. So there's a drive for organizations. I mean, even the oldest kinds of distributors you can think of are calling us and saying, we had I don't want to say too much about them because they were in the news, but we had a company call us that was in the farm business and eggs. And they're like, hey, we need to switch ERPs. They're like, okay, what are you guys on? Oh, we implemented in 1970, right? And why are you talking to us now? Because the margins were high. Now, maybe they were too high, and you can read about that in the paper. We didn't end up working with them. But the point of what I'm trying to say is margins are higher in some industries where margins have typically been lower. So they have money to invest in technology. So that's why I'm saying there's these weird variables and macro and even microeconomic changes that are occurring now. And so again, you have a lot of legacy customers coming to the market. They really, they want to do something. They maybe have some more money. So this is important that we all know this, that I still see, and even the NetSuites, the Intacs, companies get on these solutions and, they can leave those in place and they can do ancillary software, the bolt-ons. They can do all kinds of things are going on with data warehousing and analytics. We're taking that to the whole next level with a lot of our clients of how do you pull information together and do reporting and stuff like that. But also automation. We were talking about RPA, remote process automation or robotic process automation and machine learning a couple of years ago. And now it is AI. But with the investments that's happening in the data centers in the centers that can hold the GPUs from companies like NVIDIA, we are going to see that to a whole new level. I mean, I can think of like 5 clients offhand, Derek, that we built, so you guys built great customizations for, and slows down the systems, right? They might even be on a special tier for $100,000 more a year, but it still slowed them down. We need more computing for this AI to come in place. That's coming in place. A little all over the place on this, but the factor, to get back to your question, Josh. So you have legacy customers. They want to bolt on. They're going to start buying more AI-based solutions because you just can't not. And it's not the solutions that's driving it. It's the people in the organization saying, I'm done doing all this manual crap. We're going to go get an app. I'm going to go get another job. I don't care what anybody says. We went from the great resignation to the great stay. I think I don't know if you guys have seen that phrase. Everybody's staying where they're at. Now they're going to quit and go someplace else if they can get a better job and do cooler things. So I think that's going to drive more ancillary solutions, more, payment processing things. We're automating the order to cash. Procure to pay has already been automated, but now let's put some AI in. And it's not about eliminating companies or people. Maybe if you're a PE play and you have the portfolio or the platform company, and then you add 5 more businesses on that, you don't need 5 whatevers anymore. Fine. But I think it's more about, kind of automation and competition, which I've seen over my 30-year career, which are great reasons to get into technology. So again, you sort of have the span of like customers like, $1 billion wood distributor, literally, that's been in business for 40 years, and the next generation saying, I just want better software. I want to know what's going on in my business. We had an owner recently, he was second generation, and he just said, I can't grow anymore. Like, I want to go get into ancillary businesses or auxiliary businesses, adjacent, pardon me, but I can't because I don't feel like we really understand what we're doing in the core now because our software hasn't been updated. So you've got all these factors that come in, and they don't really want to change the base software. Like another client I can think of, we're going to leave their line of business software in place that's been there for 25 years, and then we're going to layer in solutions on top of it that aren't really even an ERP. We did that for a global life sciences company where we got what we call the Super GL that sat on top of all of their ERPs, and it could suck in all the different accounting transactions. Some of it was trial balance, some was journal entry, some was transactional data, right, into a solution that then the accounting team could do their reporting and analytics out of, and they didn't have to replace all their systems with ERP. So I think there's so many options in the market for software. There's always going to be risk aversion, and switching out an ERP is very risky. And then there's some phenomenal solutions that you guys are highlighting. You look at like a Flowcast, you look at some of the other tools that are out there. There's some AI FP&A tools that are coming out that, much less you look at like a OneStream, right, that I think just went public or something, and they're killing it. They are killing it. That's what happens is you have they did great the first time, they sold it to somebody. Now, what do you know? They're doing great the second time. But long story short, there's some phenomenal sort of bolt-on solutions and third-party solutions that, it's harder. I think it's harder for people listening to your podcast to figure out what to do because there's so many solutions out there. But again, understand what you're fundamentally trying to solve first, and then with a little bit of research, it'll be more clear.
Awesome. That's very helpful, Shawn.
Good.
Tell you what, with a couple minutes left, Shawn, do you want to share a little bit about some of the resources on your website for everyone? Because I know that some of that stuff is extremely helpful.
Let's do it. Yeah, and I appreciate that too. We are really big into education. You can see the screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So we have like tons and tons of stuff that if I were you, I wouldn't go about this until you've done the research, like I said, right? And you'll see that our stuff is it's like gold. First off, it's really simple. Our competitors aren't so simple. We want people reading it, but we've got stuff on top ERP vendors that are out there. You can sort of see some of our reports and stuff that we've done on them. There's a bunch of those. We also have under this ERP topics, this is resources, ERP topics. We've got papers on legacy software. Like, what does that really mean, right? And why would you upgrade it? How vendors mitigate sunsetting their legacy software, right? There's so many apps that are getting sunsetted in the next 5 years. It's crazy. That's why I'm saying there's all this pent up demand for these companies I said it earlier, but the bottom line is there's tons of apps that are being sunsetted across all of the software vendors. Sage, Microsoft, Oracle, SAP, Infor, IFS, like Deltek. I can keep going on and on. So if you're in that boat, take a look at that. That's a good one too. I think we've got some reports here too on trends for ERP in 2024. There's some implementation steps that are super, 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 super simple, but really good. This goes to your point earlier, I think, Josh, about the playbook, right? And this actually even answers some of the questions that you said earlier, like, what do we do here? You got to know your process. You got to know the time it's going to take. You got to know how to work with the vendors. So we sort of phrase this in the way of the problems that a lot of people have. And then, we click over to things. And I think there's some reports that you can download or whatever. But, we've got papers about what happens with these implementations and why there were mistakes or why there were errors and that kind of thing. One last thing I think I'll show you too. I mean, we also have a podcast, of course. We've had Derek on, but we cover ERP news on kind of what's going on. Rebecca is my digital marketing manager. She's amazing. And we're always covering what's going on with the vendors. And, it's incredible when you look at the results. This is one last thing I'll say to you guys, because we're kind of in the industry and everybody listening. The software vendors are making a ton of money still, especially the big ones. Like, like lots of cash. Now they're being driven hard to continue to hit their growth targets, for sure. I get that. But the real profit margin that these organizations are creating is astronomical. They could build a gigantic building in the middle of the most populated city in the Western United States, right? Some of the vendors, whoever that is. So, we even kind of get into like what these companies are doing with their R&D dollars and that kind of thing. So anyway, I think, and the classic, I'm even afraid to bring this up because I think we've had this for a while. We just recorded this recently. But I kind of go through, that's my dinosaur pose. What is ERP? And it's very basic. And frankly, all of our new people listen to it too, so that we're all talking about ERP as a conceptual framework. It's not an app anymore, right? You don't go and buy an ERP. You actually are buying multiple solutions that all need to integrate together to meet some common business issue. And I dive into all that stuff there too. So tons of resources there if you guys need those for sure.
Awesome.
Cascade. Yep.
And that's awesome, Shawn. And there is really, really valuable stuff. And again, I think part of the value is 15 years of experience. The other part of value is someone who doesn't take commissions from the software company. So you're getting the real deal versus the review websites, which are jockeyed, and the research agencies, which we all kind of think are jockeyed as well. Shawn, before we let you go, I guess two things. One is anything you didn't say that you want to say, things that people should know. And then two, how do people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about systems or your services?
Yeah. I mean, there's the two. So the first thing I would say is, ERP is really, really hard. Buying I'm trying to think of something we haven't even talked about, a payment provider, payment solutions, procurement solutions, warehouse management. It's all hard, but you're going to do it. You are, because I think most people know fundamentally the value of automation. It isn't just about like, oh, we're going to, it's like parity with your competitors for sure, but then the ultimate value, it just sort of makes sense, and keep it at that level that it makes sense. And you can do it successfully. There are successful companies. We've worked together. You've had other clients. You've made them successful. We've had successful clients. It can be done for sure, but just know what you're doing. That's all I can say. Just know what you're doing. And there's tons of education resources out there, including folks like us, right? And, we always do a free call or two with anybody who calls. We talked to a company yesterday that was $4 million in revenue. We talked to another company that was looking at should they go to QuickBooks to zero. We talked to another company that was on ECC6, SAP, and they're looking at a global rollout, not sure what to do to go to S/4HANA Cloud, right, across 5,000 or 50,000 employees, some ridiculous amount. We said, we don't do that. I'm sorry. Good luck with that. Which is too bad, because one of those projects would be this size of my annual revenue. But, the bottom line is that you can always reach out to us, and you can certainly go online, just click the consult. You can always send an email to my partner, Erica, like America, but ERICA at ERP Advisors Group. And she'll probably respond faster than you can possibly imagine. But we're here to help, and we'll get you going in the right direction for sure. And maybe it's an opportunity for us to help you in the long term, or maybe it's not. We may say, hey, you know what? Because we've done this, just give Derek a call over at SCS and he'll take care of you. Or like, whoa, you guys don't have a clue what's going on. You really need some help. We'll come in, we'll go through that process with you. And I mean, we save our fees in the negotiations as well. As Derek knows, we're tough, but we're fair, right? But we know the ways to say, hey, why don't we get price caps for multiple years? And why don't we look at, do you really need this amount of users for now? There's things that we know. And then we have a white paper on how to negotiate for enterprise software that you should download too. And we had a random company call us, one of those, there were about 2,000 people, and we're selling into them. And I said, you should do these two things, whether you hire us or not, because I could tell he wasn't going to. He was a do-it-yourselfer. And he sent a note back and said, I did those things, and I saved us $100,000 in the first year and then 50 every year thereafter. And so Erica said, would you buy Shawn some cookies then? At least do something. There's this company called, it's called Last Crumble, I think it is, that we love. There's huge cookies that are, anyway. So that's it. Thank you guys so much for the opportunity too. I appreciate joining y'all.
All right, Derek, we heard from Shawn. Any opinions or thoughts?
Yeah, look, I think this area can be so confusing, and choosing the wrong software is incredibly penalizing to the business. If you choose the wrong system and you implement it and you get halfway through and you have to stop, or you go live with it and then you have to swap it out a year later, it's a very, very expensive and time intensive process. So making the right choices and being sure that you're set up for success, whether that's with the right system, the right third-party vendors, the right add-ons, the right resources internally, or just generally the right approach, and knowing you're in the right ballpark in terms of pricing and discounts it's so important. It's worth so much to know that you can have confidence in embarking down the ERP journey. So I think it's pretty incredible to have some both free resources and a team like Shawn's available to assist a company. Seems super beneficial.
I agree. There's other people out there who do what Shawn does. However, he's very honest, he's very transparent, and provides a great service with 15 years of experience. It makes no sense to me why a business who's going to go through a monumental change like an ERP implementation wouldn't at least have a conversation with one of these groups. They know the pricing, they know the process, they know how to get you through it efficiently, effectively. Even if you've done it many times, it's that trainer or that coach that makes it successful. So hopefully people found value from this. I think there's a lot of value in what they provide, and certainly something I would use when I was selecting an ERP. Okay. Well, with that, it's been another great episode. Like us, love us, subscribe to us, and we'll be back next time.